Good afternoon, students. So today morning we have learned about Indian Evidence Act, right? We were dealing with Indian Evidence Act, so we will continue it. We were dealing with Section 45 IEA. Section 45 pertains to your expert testimony. As a forensic expert, you will be dealing with Section 25. Okay. RW means you have to read it with 293 IPC. Okay. Whenever you are reading Section 45, read it with 293 IPC. Then we have read about all this today morning. Those who are absent, today morning we read about expert testimony, when someone can come and give a testimony when they are not experts. All those things we have covered. Okay. So we had covered all that. So now we will move on to examination of witnesses. Our next topic will be examination of witnesses. So witness is someone who must have seen something or heard something, so they will be called to the court. Okay, they will be called to the court and they can give their witness statements. That is known as examination of witnesses. So there are mainly three types of examinations. That is known as examination in chief, cross examination, re-examination. So examination in chief is the examination of a witness by the party who calls him. For example, prosecution called the witness. Okay. Then examination in chief means prosecution will be asking questions to that person. Okay. Just giving an introduction, whatever you have seen, tell me that. All those things prosecution will be asking. That is known as examination in chief. Cross examination. Now prosecution witness, right? So now defense will start asking. Listen, where did you see the right thing? All those contradictory questions defense will start asking. That is known as cross examination. Re-examination. So after cross examination, if the party who called them, examination in chief, if prosecution, if they want to ask them again a question, then that is known as re-examination. Okay, re-examination. So there are three types of examination. One is known as examination in chief, cross examination, then re-examination. Examination in chief by the party who called the witness. Examination in cross is like the party who like the opposite party. Then re-examination is after cross examination, the party who called the witness can examine them again. Okay, that is known as re-examination. So these are some of the laws or some of the sections that you will have to read. Okay, we will read it now itself. So the some of sections you have to study. Only main sections I have given because you can't study the entire evidence act, right? I know it's hard. So main sections you have to study. So this also sections 137 to 140. 137 to 140. So we'll see about 137 to 140. Okay, so we will see about which were we seeing. We were checking about 137 to 140 examination, that we will do now. So we will go to the Evidence Act. Okay, today morning we have seen the Evidence Act. We will go to the Evidence Act, and now we will go to 130, right? 137. Okay. 137, only 60 pages, so 137 will be almost equal to 49. What section is it? 114. So 127. Yes, 137. 137 is the one which deals with examination of witnesses. Okay, who is a witness? We'll go back to our A and B. Our A is here. Our A is here. You'll make it colorful. Our B is also here. Okay. Then what did they do? A killed B. Okay. A killed B. Fine. And there was C. C was there and C saw all this. Which color will you use? Okay, you can try this. C was seeing that A is killing B. Okay, C saw all this. So C is known as a witness. Okay, C is known as a witness. A's party, A killed B, right? So A's party is known as, so B is the victim. So this will be your prosecution side. Fine. This is the culprit, right? Culprit means criminal, it's also known as perpetrator. You can call it whatever you want. And this side will be your defense. Fine with all this. This person C is your witness because he saw all these things. So now we won't be dealing with this A and B, we will be dealing with this person over here. Okay, witness. How this person is called? Okay, the party, for example, prosecution is calling this person to give the statement. Witness, right? So prosecution is calling C. So they will first ask. So he is. So our witness. So witness is coming from the side of prosecution. We have our witness C. Prosecution called him. Okay, prosecution called him. You know what happens? They'll come to the court. Okay, they'll stand there. They'll take an oath. Okay, all that is done. Imagine all that is done. Okay, so that's done. Then witness is there. Now questioning happens. So what is the order of questioning? First, prosecution will come and ask the witness. That is known as examination in chief. Okay, examination in chief. The party who called the witness will be asking them. That is known as examination in chief. For example, they will be asking them like, did you see? What did you see? Tell everything that you know. You have seen so many movies. I know that. So you know, right? What they will ask. So that is known as examination in chief. Then we have, then that's done. Then the real play happens. Then you have cross examination. Cross examination. Okay. Cross examination will be done by the opposite party. Okay. Then you will be having so many questions. They will be asking, why were you at that place? Okay. You have seen in movies, right? Why were you at that place? They will start asking so many questions. Okay. So that is known as examination, cross examination. Then after cross examination, if something new comes up, okay, then the prosecution want to ask about that. Then they will ask again. That is known as re-examination. That is known as re-examination. Fine. So 3 types of examination. We will go to evidence side again. Examination in chief, cross examination, re-examination. Where is it defined? It is defined in 137 IEA. 137 IEA. So examination in chief. The examination of witness by the party who calls him shall be called his examination in chief. Cross examination. The examination of a witness by the adverse party. Adverse means opposite party. Okay. By the adverse party shall be called his cross examination. Re-examination. The examination of witness subsequent to cross examination by the party who called him shall be called re-examination. So, okay, the party who called him will examine him again. That is known as re-examination. Order of examination. What is the order? Now we know the definitions. So what is the order of examination? Witness shall be first examined in chief, then if adverse party desires, cross examined, then if party calling him desires, re-examined. Okay, if the adverse party doesn't want to cross examination, no problem. Okay. The examination and cross examination must relate to relevant fact, but the cross examination need not be confined to fact with the witness testified on his examination in chief. Okay, they have to be relevant fact. Okay, you can't ask them about your family, like how much money you have in your background account. That only you can't ask. Okay, something relevant to the murder only you have to ask. Okay, not irrelevant questions. Fine. Then, so it is not limited also. If cross examination time, if defense feels like they want to ask something else, they can, with the permission of judge, they can ask. Okay, you will have seen that when they are asking some questions, the other lawyer stands up and like, sir, this is out of, like, this is not with this, concerned with this. So he'll be starting, right? Then magistrate will tell that adjourned. So you have seen the movies, same thing. This is the science behind it, like this is the real process. So you have to, everything runs on a code, everything runs on a code. So this is the code behind that. Okay. Direction of re-exam. The re-examination shall be directed to explanation of matters referred to in cross-examination, and if no matter is by the permission of court introduced in the re-examination, the adverse party may further cross-examine upon that matter. Okay. So re-examinations and so our C, our witness, okay, he is examined, okay, first his examination in chief is done, then examination in cross is done. In examination in cross he told something new, okay, he told something else. Then these people will ask him again, that is known as examination in chief, that they will ask again, that is known as re-examination. And if something new comes up, something new comes up here, then this process will come into new, they will again cross examine him, okay. Then if there is something new coming, they will again re-examine, okay. So it's like a chain cycle of events, okay. It's not like examine, re-examine, cross examine, re-examine and done, you can't leave the stage, okay. They will sometimes, if new things come up, they will ask again and again, fine. So that's all. So now, so we saw from 137 to 140, right? Yes. So order of examination, direction of examination, cross examination of a person called to produce a document. A person summoned to be produce a document does not become a witness by mere fact that he produces it and cannot be cross examined unless he is called a witness. For example, if you have some will, deed or something, okay, and you want to produce some document in court, okay, you didn't see anything, you just wanted to produce some document in court, you came and produced it, but the defense can't call you as a witness and ask you questions, okay, you just came to produce a document, that's all, okay, you cannot be called as a witness. So that is defined in this. Witness character, okay, witness character may be cross examined and re-examined. Sometimes you can see in movies, right, they will be telling this person has been already in jail, okay, how can he be witness, okay. So witness characters can be questioned. Yes. There's one more thing that is known as leading questions, okay. Leading questions means any question suggesting the answer which the person putting it wishes to or accept to receive is called leading question. Leading question means any question, okay, mainly from the cross examination side only it will come, okay. Leading question means it may be any question that the party putting it want to get an answer for, okay, they need to get an answer for that. So leading questions are direct, that C is supposed to answer that, okay. C told that he saw A and B, A killing B. Then if the cross examiner is asking, what were you doing there? What were you doing there? Okay. If the defense is asking, what were you doing there? They are asking C, what were you doing there? C cannot tell that it's my personal matter. C cannot tell like that. C is supposed to answer, okay, that's a leading question, okay. C is supposed to answer for the relevancy of the case. So that is known as leading question. Those kinds of questions which C is supposed to answer is known as leading questions. Yes. So leading questions in 141, and there are some sections like when leading questions should be asked, okay, evidences to matter of writing, cross examination to previous statements. These are all I won't be explaining in class because it's not a law lecture, okay, so I won't be buzzing your head with too much law, okay. The relevant sections only I will be telling, but if you are reading this much, you will be interesting to read the section underneath also. So that is how you get the curiosity, okay. So try reading Evidence Act, try reading all the acts, okay. Whenever you have time, it's good for you, okay. General knowledge is very good for you. Try reading them. Then next section which we will be dealing with is electronic evidence, that is 65A of IEA. So we will go with 65A of IEA. 65, okay, 65 is here, and 65A means 65A means these are sections which are amended. Okay, for example, this is a very old act, right? This Evidence Act is very old, right? So in that time there was no computers, there was no electronic evidences and all. So when electronic evidences came in, you can't change some act, right? You can't change this IEA entirely. So they will add new things like 65A, 65B, 65C, all those things they will add up. That is known as amendments, new amendments. That is why when you are taking a law book, always take the edition, the last amended edition. Or example, if IEA you are taking 2018 will be there, 2015 will be there. So like that you take. Special provisions to as to evidence relating to electronic record. This contents of electronic records may be provided in accordance with section B. Okay, so these are some aspects given here of electronic evidences. So they have told what is electronic, the computer containing output, information produced, all those things. Pertaining to all those things, they are electronic evidences. So I am not explaining this section because we will be dealing with one more act, that is known as the IT Act. Okay, when we are dealing with IT Act, we will anyway explain electronic evidences. So that will override this. So I will explain that one. But in Evidence Act, if the question comes, if in Evidence Act, where is electronic evidences, where is the section for electronic evidences, that is 65B. Okay, 65B is the section for electronic evidences. Hostile witnesses, that is an important thing. Okay, we will have to go back to 154 now. Yes. So hostile witness, in the sense, I will tell you, question by party to his own witness. The court may in its discretion permit the person who calls a witness to put any questions to him which might be put in cross examination by the adverse party. Nothing in this section shall disentitle the person so permitted under subsection 1 to rely on any part of the evidence of such. So I will explain you what it means. So we will get back to our characters. Our poor B was murdered by A, okay, and our this guy C saw it, C is our witness. What color is this? C is now our witness, okay. Then court proceedings. So he came to court, he is a witness now. First will be your leading questions, then will be cross questioning or cross examination. Second one is known as re-examination. So our C, okay, prosecutor called them, okay, then C is telling that yes, this side only called C, okay, B side, this side only called C. This is known as prosecution. This is your defense. Defense will be cross examining. So first he will be examined in chief. First he will be examined in chief, right? Examination chief. So what happens? Prosecution will call the witness and he will ask, did you see A murdering B? Then C will be like, yes, I saw A murdering B. He stabbed B with some knife and I saw that. Okay, that's fine. Then they will tell, okay. Okay, then the defense will tell, defense will come and defense will be asking the thing, did you see? Okay, then C will sometimes tell, no, I did not see, they were forcing me to tell. Okay, that means he is now a hostile witness. Okay, he is now a hostile witness. Hostile witness means he has changed the statement entirely. Okay, he came to help the prosecution. Okay, he came to help the prosecution. Okay, he told that he saw A killing B. Okay, but when cross-examination defense asked, he must have taken money from defense, whatever it may be, that we don't know. But during cross-examination, What he told? He changed the statement entirely. Okay. In that time, that is known as hostile witness. In that time, this section comes in. Question by a party to his own witnesses. Okay. That means they only called him, right? So now prosecution has the authority, with the help of court. Prosecution can cross-examine. Prosecution can cross-examine. Prosecution has the right to cross-examine. They will ask the court, you have to cross-examine, then prosecution can examine. Okay. So hostile witness means our C who came for the prosecution to help out the prosecution, but he turned out to tell statements that will be in favor of defense. Okay. Then in that time, instead of chief examination, after chief cross-examination, he told that. So here the prosecution can ask the court and start cross-examination of the witness. Okay. Cross-examination is always done by the opposite party, but if the witness is turning hostile, then these people, the ones who called him, they can cross-examine. Okay. They can start asking him leading questions. They can start asking him leading questions and he is supposed to answer. Okay. So that's done. Impeaching credit of witness. So impeaching credit of witness. So he turned hostile, he told something that was not supposed to tell. Okay. He told against the prosecution, ones who called him. So credit of witness have a credit, right? They can be dismissed. So impeaching credit of witness means the credit of a witness may be impeached in the following ways by the adverse party with the consent of court by the party who calls him. Okay. So by the evidence of person who testify that they, from their knowledge of witness, believed him to be unworthy. Okay. By proof of former statement inconsistent with any party of which evidence is liable to credit. Okay. Illustrations. We will see the illustration, then you will understand more. So A sues B for the price of goods sold and delivered to B. Okay. C says that he delivered the goods. Evidence is offered to show that on a previous occasion he said that he had not delivered goods to B. The evidence is admissible. Evidence is admissible. A is indicated for the murder of B. C says that, okay, here also we have our A and B. Okay. A is indicated for the murder of B. C says that B, when dying. So impeaching credit of witness, like in one occasion he had told something else, and in another occasion he is telling someone else something else. So C says that when we were delivering goods, C told one time that he had delivered goods to B, but in some other time he told that he did not deliver goods to B. That means his evidence is all, whatever he is telling is already contradicting, right? So he cannot be called as a real witnesses. Okay, because he will be telling contrary statements. That is known as impeaching credit of witnesses. So whenever you are reading, read it with section 190 and 193 of IPC. So what is 190? So there is something like punishment for false evidences. Okay, if you are giving false evidences, there is also punishment. Okay, so that is given in section 193 of IPC. So Whoever intentionally gives false evidence in any stage of judicial proceeding or fabricates false evidence for the purpose of being used at any stage of judicial proceeding shall be punished with imprisonment for either a term which may extend to 7 years and shall also be liable to fine, and whoever intentionally fabricates false evidence in any other case shall be punished with imprisonment either a term which may extend to 3 years and shall also be liable to fine. So, false evidences, don't do that, don't buy money and provide false evidences. So, you are already punishable for that. If you are providing false evidences, there is section 193 of IPC will be on you, and your punishment will be almost equal to 7 years, okay, sometimes in the case 3 years or more, and you will also be getting some fine, okay. So, this is what I told. All the 3 laws are always intermingled, okay. All the 3 laws are you may sometimes find definitions only in IPC, sometimes you only may find the procedures in CRPC. So, these 3 laws are intermingled. You will have to know the 3 of them to proceed it properly. So, we are done with that. Then we something known as refreshing memory. So, what do you mean by refreshing memory? 159. So, if you are interested, you can read all these sections. It's okay if you don't, but some people may like law, some people may not like law. Sorry for the technical errors, there is some network issues. Yeah, some people may like law, some people may not like law. So, it depends. If you like it, you can read it. Refreshing memory. A witness may while under examination refresh his memory by referring to any writing made by himself at the time of transaction concerning with what he is questioned. I will tell you what that means. For example, if he is making a statement, for example, the trial is after 10 years. They already conducted a trial, okay, the case was not there. Okay, and after 7 years they are reopening that case. Okay, after 7 years they are reopening that case, and in that time also they are calling the same witness. Then that time he may forget what he told, right? We are all human beings, we will forget what he told. So, court gives them the permission to read his statements. Like they will give his statements what he told in the 7 years before, what he told in the court. He can refresh his memory. He can refresh it by looking into the case. Okay, he can refresh it by reading some documents. Whatever it is, he is allowed to refresh his memory. Okay. That is known as refreshing of memory. So, we are almost done with Evidence Act. These sections you read. So, I will just give you a brief of Evidence Act. In the Evidence Act contains rules or regulations for Evidence Act. From the name itself it is given, right, for collection of evidences and how to present it to court. Okay, that is its main agenda. That is why it is used for. So, Evidence Act was passed by Imperial Legislative Council, that was a British, in 1872. It was based on the English law of evidence. 167 sections and 11 chapters. Okay, just 167 sections. Read them when you get time. Be good for you. Okay, it came into force on 1st September 1872. I will send you the PPT, so don't worry about it. This we have seen, we have discussed all this. Expert opinion, very important. As an expert, you have to read what is expert opinion. Okay, so read section 293 IPC with section 45 of IEA. Read the both together. Then we have seen when a person who is not an expert, when is he supposed to give evidences, okay, or expert testimony. If he is a common person, can he give expert testimony? So, he can give expert testimony. All these are mentioned under 47, 48, 49 and 50. Okay, read that. We already discussed all that, that is why. Okay. Examination of witnesses, I told you, chief examination, cross examination, re-examination. Then these electronic evidences, leading question, hostile witness, impeaching credit of witness, refreshing memory. So we are done with Indian Evidence Act. Okay. Download Bare Acts and start studying. Now we will move on to our next topic, and one of the relevant topics in this present era, that is your IT Act 2000. Okay, the Information Technology Act or IT Act 2000. We are going to start the IT Act. So the main objective of this act is to carry lawful and trustworthy electronic, digital and online transaction and alleviate or reduce cyber crimes. For online transactions, for whatever you are making online, digital signature, everything, you have to follow some laws, okay, so that the data is protected. So all those things are mentioned in the IT Act. Okay. Original Act contained 94 sections divided into 13 chapters and 4 schedules. That is original Act, but amendments started happening. Okay, 2008 there was an amendment. Okay, this is of 2000. It's a new act because new IT evidences only came. Like then only we had computers, and then only people started cyber crimes. Right? In 1950 there was no computers and cyber crimes. But now in this present era there are. So that is why it was started in 2000. IT Act 2000. Okay. Contains 94 sections divided into 13 chapters and 4 schedules. That is the original act. The laws apply to the whole of India. Okay. In 1996. So how did all this start? So in 1996, United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UNICITRAL. Okay. So UNICITRAL is United Nations Commission on International Trade and Law, adopted the model law on electronic commerce. They adopted a law, it's a model law of electronic commerce, to bring uniformity in law in different countries. They want to bring a uniform laws for all these cyber crimes. Okay, so you know about UN, right? The United Nations. India is a part of United Nations. There are almost 86, so many countries which are part of United Nations. So there is something known as international law also, but you don't have that in your syllabus. It's an interesting topic. International law, we have an international court also, okay, under the United Nations. So all these member nations have a specific court, okay, for big crimes like genocide and all those crimes, goes the terrorism and all is dealt with international courts, because it will be between two countries, right? So these all the other laws are in India, okay, and between two countries or two continents what happens, so that has to be international level, right? So International Court of Justice is mentioned like taken over by or under the United Nations. So they want to bring a uniform law they wanted to bring. So they started following the electronic commerce law, modern law of electronic commerce. Then in General Assembly of the United Nations recommended that all countries must consider this model law before making changes to their own laws. So from model law which UN was following, they told all the member countries, you refer our modern law, then you make laws for your countries for cyber crimes. Okay, India also referred their laws and made the law. So India became the 12th country to enable the cyber law after it passed the Information Technology Act 2000. After it was passed as the Information Technology Act 2000. Okay, the bill was passed in 2000 section, that is fine. Was finalized by Ministry of Information Technology. Yes. So I told you somebody had asked me a doubt. Somebody had asked me a doubt about, like, we'll use the board, that will be better. So somebody had asked hacking happens in India, outside India. So now we came to the IT Act. Now we can discuss about hacking and everything. Okay. So this is our India. Okay, and the hacker may be from US, take it as US. Okay, he was hacking one computer or a firm or computer in India. So how does the law apply? It will apply in US or in India. Okay, it will apply in India. Okay, because of the IT Act. So the section relevant for is section 75 of IT Act. So the section is section 75 of IT Act. So in that 75, by that 75, this hacker is punishable under Indian laws. Okay, is punishable under Indian laws. Section 75 of IT Act. I'll let you read the section, that will be easier. So we'll open the IT Act, Information Technology Act. It's very small. Okay, it's very small. It's smaller than the Evidence Act. So those who are interested in cyber forensics, they can start reading this. Okay, only 90% is finished. Which section you have to go to? 75. Finally, I am almost near 75. Act to apply for offence or contravention committed outside India. Okay, it's clearly and properly defined. So, subject to the provisions of subsection 2, the provisions of this act shall apply to any offence or contravention committed outside India by any person irrespective of nationality. Okay, wherever whoever citizen he may be, he can be punished. Okay, for the purpose in subsection 1, this act apply to offence or conduct committed outside India by any person if act or conduct constitution to offence or contravention involves a computer. So when can be punishment? If he is hacking into or he is doing something with a computer or computer system or computer network located in India. If he is doing anything to a computer system, computer network located in India, he can be punished by this act. Fine. So doubt is clear, right? So I don't know if the one who asked the doubt is online for the lecture, but still I have cleared his doubt. So if it's outside India, they can be punished. Okay, they can be punished under 75 of IT Act. Yes. What are the main objectives for IT Act? Main objectives. There are some objectives for IT Act. Okay, we won't be enabling it just for fun, right? So have some objectives. That is like grant legal recognition to all transactions done via electronic exchange of data. Okay, all the transactions that you're doing through electronic data exchange. For that, the government has to follow some rules. They have given permission, granted permission. You are shopping from your Myntra, whatever. Okay, you are filling some form. All those things are electronic transactions, right? You are not going there and giving your this thing, right? Form, right? Everything is electronic. So all those things, grant legal recognition for all those things. You give a legal recognition, legal protection, and if somebody else is tampering with that, they will be punished. So granting a legal recognition to all transactions done via electronic exchange of data. Fine. Giving legal recognition to digital signatures. So digital signatures are used widely now. Okay, so if you go to your like in panchayat offices also, if you go like village offices also, if you go for your birth certificate and all, like for a nativity certificate and all, they won't sign it with pen now. Everybody has a digital certificate. Okay, they do a digital certificate. Digitally they put a certificate or a sign. Okay, a sign which is even digitally, it's a digital certificate. So give legal recognition to digital certificate. When you are submitting that somewhere also, that is valid. Okay, because by the IT Act we can give digital signatures, no problem. So giving a legal recognition to digital signatures. Facilitate the electronic filling of documents. Okay, electronic filling of documents means when you came to Aditya, you can fill the forms online, right? So electronic filling of documents is just that. Okay, the government agencies also having so many electronic. So whenever you are writing an exam also, okay, national exams, you fill it online. Everything you fill it online. Okay, so for that also your data must not be taken by someone else. Nobody must tamper. If somebody is tampering, they must be punished. So all these things are given in the IT Act. So to facilitate the electronic filling of documents. Fine with that? Facilitate electronic storage of data. All this data is stored somewhere also, right? Aadhaar, for example, Aadhaar also, that's also stored somewhere. So, facilitating the electronic storage of data. Yes, then giving legal sanctions and also facilitate the electronic transfer of funds between banks and financial institutions. So, transfer of funds, when you are transferring some funds, okay, you buy. Okay, so when you are transferring some funds or whatever it may be, okay, buying something from Flipkart, Myntra, everything is some, or you are sending someone money, everything is a fund transfer happening, okay. So if someone is tampering with that, okay, anything illegal is happening with that, they must be punished under the laws of IT Acts, okay. So that is also given as an objective. Then granting legal recognition to bankers under the Evidence Act 1891 and Reserve Bank Act for keeping book of accounts. So electronic forms, banks are allowed to keep electronic these passbooks now. You also have applications. You also have all your favorite bank applications, Axis Bank, HDFC, whatever it is. You can download their passbooks and use it digitally, right? So for that also some protection must be given by some law, or they must be given legal validity. Legal validity is given by the IT Act. Fine. So we have discussed the briefly we discussed IT Act. Next day we will discuss the sections which are important, okay. So we will finish our lecture here. I told you, if somebody from outside also is hacking, then still it's punishable, okay. Section 75, that was a doubt. So section 75 of IT Act, you can read that. He is also, or if he is a foreign national also, he is punishable under laws of India, okay, because he tampered with a system that was in India, okay, a computer system or network that was in India. If you are tampering with that also, he is punishable under the IT Act 75.